What does it take to rise from a forgotten mailroom clerk to one of the most powerful and controversial figures in entertainment history? To build empires out of raw talent, create global sensations, and still find yourself haunted by loneliness, heartbreak, and scandal? This is the untold story of Simon Cowell, a man whose razor-sharp eyes and brutal honesty turned him into television royalty, but whose personal struggles reveal a journey far more fragile, raw, and deeply human than the world ever imagined. Simon Cowell is not just a TV personality. He's a brand, a cultural phenomenon. For decades, his name has been synonymous with both the dreams and heartbreaks of thousands of aspiring stars. With hit franchises like American Idol, The X Factor, and Got Talent, Simon didn't just create TV shows. He created an entire generation of superstars and left a permanent mark on pop culture. But his story didn't start in the blinding glow of fame. It began in the shadows, where rejection, self-doubt, and heartbreak shaped him long before the cameras ever rolled. Born in 1959 in Lambeth, London, Simon grew up in Elstree, Hertfordshire, a quiet village that would become the silent witness to his early battles with expectations. His mother, Julie Brett, was an elegant ballet dancer and socialite, a woman whose life was defined by grace and movement. His father, Eric Philip Cowell, was a property developer and music industry executive. He was a man who believed in excellence, but rarely expressed warmth or praise. Simon would later confess, "My father never said, 'I'm proud of you,' even when I needed it the most." He wasn't a child prodigy. In fact, young Simon struggled to find his place. He attended Radlett Preparatory School and later Dover College, but he was far from a model student. He didn't like rules, he didn't fit in, and academics felt like a prison rather than a path forward. By the time he scraped through with only a GCE in English and sociology, he was already feeling like a disappointment to his family, to himself, and to a world that seemed uninterested in who he was. Simon's first step into the entertainment industry was anything but glamorous. Through his father's connections, he landed a mailroom job at EMI Music. While the music industry's biggest stars and producers roamed the halls, Simon was just the boy delivering coffee, sorting mail, and existing in the background like a ghost. "I was invisible," he later admitted. "I'd bring people their drinks, and they wouldn't even look at me." Every day, he watched as stars walked by, confident, adored, larger than life, while he was stuck behind the scenes, unnoticed and unimportant. The mailroom was his first brutal taste of the entertainment world, and it left him both humbled and determined. But Simon being Simon, he didn't stay invisible for long. Even as he failed in other odd jobs and endured rejection after rejection, something began to ignite inside him. A quiet defiance, a hunger to prove himself. In 1983, armed with little more than a phone book, determination, and sheer desperation, Simon co-founded Fanfare Records. It wasn't glamorous. They sold workout tapes and novelty records, far from the high-end music business. But for Simon, it was his. It was a chance to create, to take control, and to finally step out of the shadows. Then came 1986, the moment he first tasted success. Fanfare released So Macho by Sanita, a bubbly pop hit that climbed the charts and gave Simon the validation he'd craved for years. For the first time, he felt like he belonged. But success is a cruel teacher. By 1989, Fanfare collapsed. Simon was bankrupt. He had to move back into his parents' house, sleeping in his childhood bedroom. Nearly 30 years old, broke, and humiliated. "I used to cry in the bathroom after work," he admitted years later. "I thought my life had peaked at 25. But Simon's story was not meant to end there. Beneath the despair, a stubborn spark remained. He wasn't done. Not yet. In the early 1990s, Simon joined BMG as an A&R consultant. This role would unlock his most powerful weapon, an almost supernatural ability to spot talent before the rest of the world even knew it existed. While critics laughed at his decision to sign novelty acts like the Power Rangers and WWF wrestlers, Simon understood something others didn't. Mass appeal is power. By 1995, he proved them all wrong. Simon produced a cover of Unchained Melody that stayed at #1 on the UK charts for 7 weeks straight. He was slowly, methodically building an empire, brick by brick, hit by hit. But the true turning point came in 2001 with the launch of Pop Idol. For the first time, Simon Cowell stepped in front of the camera. and the world would never be the same. Simon's judging style was unlike anything TV audiences had ever seen. He didn't sugarcoat his opinions. He didn't pretend to like mediocre talent. He was brutally honest, sometimes even cutting, and he made no apologies for it. "I'm not being rude," he would often begin, right before delivering a comment sharp enough to shatter egos. Audiences were divided. Some hated him, others couldn't look away. His authenticity, though brutal, was magnetic. Pop Idol became a sensation, leading directly to American Idol in the US, where Simon's reputation as Mr. Nasty reached its peak. By 2004, he launched the X Factor in the UK, followed by Got Talent, a franchise that would soon conquer over 70 countries. Simon Cowell wasn't just a judge anymore. He was the architect of global entertainment. He turned ordinary people into international icons. Names like Leona Lewis, Susan Boyle, and One Direction all owe their meteoric rise to him. But with fame and power came a cost. In 2013, Simon's carefully crafted public image shattered. The world was stunned when it was revealed that he was expecting a child with Lauren Silverman, the wife of his close friend, Andrew Silverman. The scandal made global headlines, triggering moral outrage and endless tabloid speculation. Andrew Silverman filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery, and Simon's reputation took a severe hit. For a man who thrived on control, this was chaos. He was vilified in the media, and for the first time, Simon wished he could disappear from the spotlight. "It was not something I'm proud of," he confessed later. But in the midst of the scandal came a twist that would change his life forever: the birth of his son, Eric, in 2014. Eric was not just a baby. He was Simon's redemption. Overnight, the ruthless television tycoon softened. He swapped boardrooms for bedtime stories, transatlantic flights for Lego building sessions, and ruthless ambition for fatherly devotion. "My priorities changed completely," Simon admitted. "My world suddenly wasn't about ratings or contracts. It was about him." Fatherhood transformed him. Those who knew Simon best said they saw a new gentleness, a new humility in him, something they had never seen before. He still carried the weight of his past mistakes, but Eric gave him a reason to heal, to change, and to become better. The next chapter of Simon's life was marked by loss and physical pain. In 2015, his mother, Julie Brett, passed away. Her death tore through him like a silent earthquake. She had been his anchor, his emotional compass, and without her, Simon confessed that he felt utterly lost. The years that followed were filled with quiet emptiness, even as his shows continued to dominate global ratings. He admitted to close friends that fame felt hollow, that success meant nothing when the people you love are gone. Then, in 2020, disaster struck again. While testing a new electric bike at his Malibu home, Simon suffered a horrific accident that broke his back in several places. He underwent emergency surgery and had metal rods inserted into his spine. For months, he couldn't move. He had to learn to walk again. "I thought this might be the end," he said in one rare interview. "I was terrified, not just of dying, but of being forgotten." Just when he was beginning to recover, another accident in 2022 shattered his confidence further. It was as if life was forcing him to slow down, to reassess what really mattered. By the early 2020s, Simon Cowell was no longer just a TV icon. He was a global figure whose every appearance sparked conversations. Yet fame, which had once been his greatest weapon, was now cutting him down. Years of cosmetic procedures and Botox, combined with the relentless pressure to stay youthful for the cameras, began to alter his appearance in ways that shocked even his most loyal fans. By 2021, viewers were asking, what happened to Simon Cowell's face? His once sharp, defined features looked frozen, his smile stiff, and his cheeks puffed. Memes went viral. Headlines mocked him. For a man who had built his career partly on appearance and judgment, this was a cruel and ironic twist. "I went a bit overboard," Simon later admitted. "I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. I decided enough was enough." From that point, he stopped cosmetic treatments and decided to let age run its course. It was a humbling moment. The once untouchable mogul was now facing the same insecurities and ridicule that so many others endured. The emotional cost of this chapter was heavier than the public ever knew. Simon began withdrawing from the limelight, making fewer appearances on America's Got Talent and other shows. He no longer chased the constant camera flashes or sought the validation of audiences. He wanted something simpler, something real. Just as Simon was finding a new rhythm, balancing his recovery, fatherhood, and a quieter lifestyle, tragedy came crashing in from a direction he never expected. In 2024, Liam Payne, one of the original members of One Direction, the boy band Simon had famously formed and mentored into worldwide superstardom, died tragically after falling from a hotel balcony in Buenos Aires. The news stunned the world. For millions of fans, One Direction was more than just a band. It was a cultural phenomenon, a beacon of youth and hope. And for Simon, Liam's death wasn't just the loss of a former mentee. It was like losing a son. "Liam was like a son to me. I've lost another loved one," Simon confessed, his voice breaking during a private interview. For a man who had always projected strength, this was a rare moment of vulnerability. His words resonated across social media, touching fans who suddenly saw a softer, grieving side of the once ruthless judge. The pain of Liam's death ripped open old wounds. It reminded Simon of losing his own father in 1999 and his mother, Julie, in 2015. Julie had been his emotional anchor, the one who believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. Losing her had plunged him into a darkness he once described as desperate unhappiness. Now, with Liam's passing, it felt like history was cruelly repeating itself. In the weeks following Liam's death, Simon retreated further into the safety of his family. Friends close to him said he spent nearly all his time with his son, Eric, deliberately avoiding the relentless media wheel that had once defined his life. Instead of flying across continents to oversee auditions, Simon now chose quiet walks along the California coast with Eric, late-night conversations about life, and simple moments of togetherness. The man who once lived for ratings and headlines was now living for his child's laughter. One longtime associate shared, "Eric saved him. He gave Simon a reason to slow down, to heal, and to start over. Without him, I think Simon would have burned out a long time ago." This wasn't just grief. It was a shift, a reevaluation of everything Simon once valued. The red carpets, the flashing cameras, the endless chase for success, all of it seemed to fade into the background. In its place, there was family, health, and peace. By 2025, Simon Cowell had transformed into a man unrecognizable from the relentless mogul he once was. Gone were the sleepless nights fueled by pressure and perfectionism. Instead, Simon embraced early morning Pilates sessions, moments of meditation, and carefully balanced nutrition. The chain-smoking workaholic had been replaced by someone who understood the fragility of life. He also scaled back his public appearances significantly. No longer the face of every Got Talent season or reality competition, Simon now chose only the projects that felt meaningful to him. He turned his energy toward initiatives for children and creativity, a reflection of his belief in second chances and the importance of nurturing raw talent. "Television and music gave me everything," he once said. "Now, I want to give something back." Even in semi-retirement, Simon Cowell's wealth is staggering. His empire, built over decades, is valued at around $600 million. His earnings still reach nearly $45 million annually, thanks to royalties from franchises like The X Factor, Got Talent, and past ventures like American Idol. He also profits from his music label, Psycho Entertainment, which has signed some of the biggest names in modern pop history. Simon's real estate portfolio is a reflection of his once extravagant lifestyle. He owns a $24 million beachfront mansion in Malibu, a $15.5 million estate in Beverly Hills, a luxury apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and a historic mansion in London's Holland Park. Each property tells a story, a chapter of the man who once lived fast and judged even faster. And then there are the cars. His garage houses over 20 luxury vehicles, including a Bugatti Veyron, Rolls-Royce Phantom, Ferrari 575, Bentley Azure, Aston Martin Classics, and even the ultra-rare Jaguar Eagle Speedster. It's a collection that would make even billionaires envious. But despite this immense fortune, Simon made a decision that left the public stunned. He has no intention of leaving his wealth to his son. "I don't believe in passing on wealth to the next generation," he stated bluntly. "Eric needs to learn the value of hard work. That's how I built everything I have, and that's the lesson I want to give him." Instead, Simon has pledged that the majority of his fortune will go to charities, particularly those focused on helping disadvantaged children. For him, it's not just about giving back. It's about ensuring that Eric grows up grounded, independent, and resilient. This stance drew both criticism and admiration. Some praised Simon for instilling values of self-reliance, while others argued it was unfair to his son. But Simon remains unmoved. For him, this is his legacy, not just the money he earned, but the message behind it. The evolution of Simon Cowell is perhaps one of the most remarkable transformations in modern entertainment. The man who once built his brand on tearing down hopeful singers with a smirk is now the father who reads bedtime stories and finds joy in simply being present. He no longer chases applause. Instead, he listens to the laughter of his son. He no longer thrives on headlines. He thrives on quiet evenings at home. His priorities have shifted from producing stars to raising one, Eric. "Fatherhood is the one thing I never knew I needed," Simon admitted. "But now, I can't imagine life without it." Looking back, Simon's journey has been anything but easy. It's a story of resilience, of a man who endured humiliation, rejection, scandal, heartbreak, and even physical agony, only to rise again, not as a flawless icon, but as a deeply human figure. But Simon's journey is also laced with stories few people know, moments that reveal the fire behind his polished TV persona. For instance, Simon's obsession with perfection wasn't just for the camera. He was infamous for spending hours personally reviewing every audition tape before episodes of X Factor aired. Former colleagues have shared that he would often call producers late at night, demanding changes, not because he wanted control, but because he believed every performance had the potential to change someone's life, if presented the right way. Behind the scenes, Simon was also a mentor unlike any other. Artists like One Direction and Leona Lewis have often credited him for not just shaping their careers, but teaching them the tough realities of fame. He would say, "Fame isn't a gift, it's a test. If you can't handle criticism, you can't survive in this industry." His guidance wasn't always kind, but it was brutally honest, a philosophy that set him apart in an era where flattery was often more common than truth. Yet, there's another side to Simon that rarely makes headlines: his quiet acts of generosity. In 2017, during the horrific Grenfell Tower fire tragedy in London, Simon didn't just donate. He spearheaded a charity single called "Bridge Over Troubled Water" to raise funds for the victims. He personally reached out to some of the biggest artists in the UK to contribute, proving that beneath the sharp comments and designer suits was a man with a heart for those in need. Interestingly, Simon has also been a visionary when it comes to entertainment. He once turned down early opportunities to invest in tech companies, believing his future was firmly in music and television. "I don't regret it," he laughed in an interview, "because I still built something that will last longer than any app, a legacy of music and talent." And perhaps that's what truly defines Simon Cowell. Not just the millions he's made or the stars he's launched, but the unshakable belief that with enough determination, resilience, and honesty, you can turn even the harshest failures into your greatest triumphs.